Thanks a lot for having me, guys. Really an honor to be here. I hope that we can get everybody out of their seats and on the court at some point during this presentation. I'm Nate Gross. I created this sport called Spec tennis in 2016. Some of you may have seen it or heard of it, or may have seen similar sports out there. But essentially, it is played on a pickleball court using an orange dot low compression tennis ball and an 18-inch paddle with holes in it. The strokes and strategies are similar to tennis, and it's different from pickleball in that there's no restricted areas, so you can stand wherever you want in the court, make volleys from anywhere, unlike pickleball where you have to wait behind the kitchen line to be able to play the ball. It's also a lot less noisy, you'll find. So I know in a lot of communities there's issues with the noise of pickleball. It's different from pop tennis with the paddle that's not as powerful, a ball that's slower, and a smaller court. The rallies tend to be a lot longer. By playing Spec tennis, you can fit 4 times the number of players on one tennis court. You see we set up 2 of these courts here on this court, but if you actually maximize the space, you can fit 2 on each side of the net, so that means you could have 16 players playing at once, so that's a good fit for a lot of clubs that are in high demand. So we're going to talk a lot about the benefits for tennis players first, and then we're going to try to break out and get people on the court doing various things. The first benefit is improved technique. With the smaller paddle and the sweet spot being closer to the hand, it makes for more compact swings. There's less that can go wrong with the technique, and so especially starting out with a beginning player, you might be able to teach them a pro forehand, and they might have success with that as opposed to with a 27-inch tennis racket, for example. Also, the orange dot ball doesn't bounce as high, and so you end up with a lot more balls in the player's strike zone. So they're fighting less battles when trying to learn proper technique. Next is improved footwork. So with this smaller court, it's easier to have a lot more efficient footwork patterns, especially with our juniors. I think one of the good things about the ROGY stages of tennis development, the red, orange, green, yellow, is that it puts players on the right size court for their stage of development. Often when we see juniors graduate to a big court too soon, their stride is a lot smaller than an adult's, and so they have more court to cover. They end up developing sloppier footwork patterns, things like that. So here they can mimic the footwork patterns of the pro tennis players. Number 3 is on the rise shots. So as you'll experience, hopefully when you come out here and play, there's typically between 6 to 8 feet from the baseline to the back fence or to an actual back fence. And so this forces a lot more players to take shots on the rise, which is an advanced skill that we want our tennis players to be able to develop. Stan was working a lot on those balls that we were attacking, players taking those on the rise. And so I think as a pro, if I have you in a lesson and I want you to take the ball on the rise, I'm simply just going to hit the ball deep. I'm not going to tell you anything and just see how you react. I think over time, you're going to start figuring out that you're not going to get pinned back here, but you're going to be taking the ball on the rise. And so having that self-discovery, I think can have a great impact rather than me just barking orders at you, telling you to take it on the rise. With the orange ball, I'm sure everybody's played with an orange dot tennis ball before. I think it makes sense to players more why they might need to change grips. So in tennis, we're always telling them, "Oh, change your grip for that low ball. You got to slice that one. You can't come in and slice it like this and use your wrist and be very successful." But in Spec, with the likelihood of a ball coming low, it makes a lot more sense to switch the grip and get used to changing different grips, which as a pro, that's really satisfying when you have a player that's well-rounded and has the ability to kind of adapt to all situations. So we see those players out there that are great, but then when they get that low ball on their backhand side, they always hit it in the net. And it sure would be nice if they were just comfortable rotating their grip a little bit to give themselves a higher probability. With the paddle being a lot less powerful than a tennis racket, doing stuff like this and trying to wrist the ball over the net doesn't work nearly as well as it might with a tennis racket. So that's why the grip changes make a lot of sense. With the low balls also comes the development of slices because it's a lot easier to slice a low ball with the paddle being open for most players than it is to try to come up on it with topspin. And so a lot of tennis players maybe have a backhand slice, but not a lot of them have a forehand slice. And again, it would just be nice to have more tools for your players to be able to play. So then they get in defensive situations and they're very comfortable switching to a slice, or simply they want to change the tempo of the point. Okay, so let's try to get 16 people out here. Can we do that? Can we get 8 on the court, grabbing paddles at the net? And we're just going to rally from baseline to baseline, very cooperative. Is everybody familiar with ping pong? Where you just kind of switch out with your partner. So if I'm here and I have a partner behind me, I'm hitting one, then my partner's hitting the next ball. Let's just get a feel for the paddle and the ball. I think we're at about 8 right now. We need about 8 more.
Out.
Two, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Matter with paddle?
Nope. They're all slightly different. You guys got 2 here? Okay, so we got 8 players. If anybody else wants to join, definitely feel free to jump in. So you can see all these guys jumped in that probably never played this before. They all look like they're playing tennis, right? So it's a great transition from tennis or into tennis. They're using the same strokes that they would on a tennis court. And right away they look like they're pros. Yes, 44 feet long by 20 feet wide, so exactly the same as a pickleball court. So if you have pickleball courts at your club, very easy to start. Here we can set this up in 10 minutes, something like this. You can also play in the service boxes on the tennis court. They're made out of high density foam.
High density foam?
Mm-hmm. High or medium density.
And what's the cost?
The cost, so I make the paddles, so I can get them to people for $60 a piece.
For paddles?
Uh-huh. I can get the paddles for $60 a piece to people. Yeah, thanks.
And these balls are just regular...
We use them for 10 and under tennis, typically. Mm-hmm. Great. All right. The rackets are slightly different. So right now you're using a heavier one. The one he's using across the net from you is a lot lighter, so it's a 10.3 ounces. So I notice a lot of players, right away when they pick up the paddle, they think it's really heavy, but they're comparing it to a pickleball paddle. So it's definitely heavier than a pickleball paddle, but that's the reason why we made those 10.3 ounce ones, so that there's less concern about the weight of the paddle.
Go ahead.
Nice. Okay, guys, let's bring it back in. We'll get you out there again in a minute. You can just leave the paddles on the court. We'll be out again soon. Awesome. Nice. I didn't see a lot of mistakes there. Very long rallies. It was great. And so I find that with Spec tennis, developing control is much easier than it is with tennis. Even if you had a student on an orange ball court using a maybe 25-inch racket, there's still the ability to whack that ball over the fence. I mean, this is a lot harder. You got to put a lot more into it. And so as a result, I think control is developed a lot easier. And I feel that as a player, the sooner they can develop control, the greater the chance they have of falling in love with the sport. I think tennis has a higher dropout rate than a lot of other sports because it's hard to get to that stage where you develop control and you're able to rally with your peers. Think about it. If we're giving a lesson and the pro is feeding the ball and the kid's hitting the ball over the net, but they're not at the stage yet where they're able to rally with their peers, they're not really playing the full game, and so they don't really have that same success they might feel of making a basketball into the hoop. And so I feel like the sooner they develop control, the more they can fall in love with the sport. So it's easier to retain kids. I find that a lot of players that develop control can attain a higher level long term than those who kind of skip control. How many of you guys have had a player that looks like a 4.0 when they hit the ball, but they can't win matches at the 3.0 level all the time, right? And so I think that player has just been taught one way to swing, and unfortunately they can't adapt to the situation they're in because maybe they skipped the control stage. So they're always trying to hit their pro forehand with topspin no matter what, when if they could simply just play a little bit of defense, they'd be able to win matches at the 3.0 level. And so I find that being able to control the ball much more enjoyable in this. Poaching. So you can work on poaching in a much smaller setting. I often work on poaching in tennis clinics, and I feel like we're doing great in the clinic, but then I never see them do it in their practice matches or on the court again, because it's a pretty intimidating, daunting task, right? Having to cover all that court, not knowing if you're going to leave your partner hanging if you can't get there, things like that. Whereas here, if I'm here and I'm poaching and I mess up and say I leave early at the wrong time and the ball goes by me that way, my partner at the baseline probably still has a really good chance of getting that. And so we can practice poaching without having to handicap our players, without having to tell the baseline player to start in a certain position not start in a certain position, but hit the ball to a certain place so that we can perform the poach. And so we can basically build our confidence in poaching in this setting. Also, the net player's opponent, who's also at the net, practicing that poach coming at them and working on defending against the poach can be very successful, especially with the softer ball. Every time somebody's ever got hit with this ball, they just immediately started laughing. And so it's going to hurt more than getting hit with, a leaf or something, but it's almost like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that hit me. How did I not get the paddle out of the way of it? Definitely going to hurt less than getting hit with a pickleball. I find that Spec is really good for families as well. So we've all seen families go out on the court with their kids and, maybe we're teaching a lesson, we see a family over here, and it starts off good, they're all fired up, get to the courts, take the racket out of the bag, but then after maybe 15 minutes, then the dad or the mom starts coaching the kid, and that's just bad for everybody. And the reason they're coaching the kid, it's out of love, they're trying to help them, but they can't get a rally going, and so they start coaching them, and then the kid starts, every time they think they're going to have to go play tennis, they begin to dread it because maybe they know they're going to get coached by their dad. Whereas if they're in a clinic, they know they're kind of safe. The pro's not going to maybe talk to them the way that their dad is giving them tough love. And so the other detriment is that as a pro, we might have to then spend time in the lesson to reteach the kids to get rid of the bad habit that the parents taught them. So then we have to discuss with the parents what being a good tennis parent looks like and things like that. So if instead of going out and playing tennis with the family, if they were out playing Spec tennis, the success rate's a lot higher with the rally. We might not have any of this issue in the first place. Next is no more complaints. So how many of you guys have juniors or even adults that say, when can I move up to green ball? When can I move up to yellow ball? I don't want to play on the baby court, things like that. So here, everybody plays on the same court. So the adults are going to play on this court, and the kids will play on the same court with the same equipment. So that can be a real selling point for the kids buying into using progressions because they want to be playing on courts that the pros are playing on or their parents are playing on. And even though the ROGY stages are just a progression, if they don't buy into that, it's hard to keep their engagement. And then they go off on the weekends and maybe they play yellow ball with their parents. Their parents aren't really informed as to what the best practice might be for them. I think the ROGY stages are great. Once again, I buy into them and I teach them every day at my club. But I think the parents think that it's karate. So you graduate to the next belt and you get a reward for becoming a black belt, for example. Whereas it's just meant to kind of match the kids with their developmental stage. So they shouldn't be getting a prize from moving up to green ball from orange ball. But because of that mindset, I think everyone just kind of rushes through it too quickly. In Spec tennis, it's hard to play a one-sided game the same way that you might see some players playing in tennis. So the ability to just rip winners from the baseline is a lot harder with the paddle being a lot less powerful, and also having your opponent be able to get to more balls. And so I think this naturally leads to developing a more complete game. So players might learn to come to the net, learn to play defense and slice the ball, which is just great overall. It's a good feeling when you see that your players has all these different tools at their disposal. And so they face a player who's a good counterpuncher, they have a solution. They face a player who is maybe a very offensive player, they have a solution. We all have players probably who face someone who's a pusher and they never have a solution. And so I think developing a really well-rounded game can be a great thing. And then kind of adding on that is point construction. Because the points typically last longer, your opponent's going to get to more balls. You have to learn to play smart. You can't bail on a point like you might in tennis. You're on the run. You're 10 feet behind the baseline. Just go for a big winner and hope it goes in. So the points tend, because they're longer, you really have to kind of plan a couple shots in advance. Okay, are we ready to get out there again? All right, we need at least 8 new people this time, plus the 8 that came out the first time. Okay, we are going to just do a simple 2 up, 2 back cross-court rally. So one player is at the net, one player is at the baseline, rallying cross-court with 2 balls going at once. If you're on a court with more than 4, rotate out after a point just so we can get a feel for some volleys coming in. And let's get everybody out here for this one for sure, because the next one's going to be a cardio game. So we got to make sure we're warmed up for the cardio-based game. Okay. Okay, so let's have 2 at the net, 2 at the baseline. So you guys go up to the net, rallying cross court with them. I'll take that. Thanks. Awesome. You be at the net also. Good. After this, why don't you go to the back fence over there, and then after this rally is done, then you rally cross court with him. You guys do the same thing. You go to the back fence over there. Okay, so after this rally's done, then you guys are all going to come out, and the next 4 are going to come in, and then we do the same again. Okay. Nice. Okay, so you guys all swap out. Now you come to the net. You're rallying cross court with him from the net.
Cross court with me.
Here you go. Here's the ball. Good. Awesome. Let's get 2 more of you over there. So after this rally ends, then we can set up the same sort of thing. The rally might never end, though. They're too good over here. Look at that topspin. Wow. Good. All right, we'll cut you guys off. Next 2 in. Good job. Okay, you guys up to the net here. Rallying cross court. You're gonna be all the way behind the baseline, though, so you're letting everything bounce. Practicing passing shots to their volley. Very nice. Good.
Is it just paddle tennis for the most part?
Similar, so it's based on it. So paddle tennis, 50-foot court, you use a green dot ball or a dead tennis ball.
Yeah.
And then the paddle's more powerful, so to make up for the bigger court.
Okay. I like it.
And then the rules are a little bit different than paddle tennis. You can serve and volley in this.
You can.
Different scoring systems, a couple other slight nuances. Good. Good. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it. Try this one. This one's totally different. So I got rid of the grit, so it doesn't cut anybody. This one, every once in a while, you nick your finger.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
so that gives you a lot more spin and stuff.
You would think, but I don't think it does with the softer ball. Yeah.
Scoring the same as tennis?
So it's no ad scoring, and you play first to 4 games wins a set. So it's kind of like fast 4 scoring. Yeah.
Okay. And when you're serving, do you have to serve it into the box? Like
You have to serve it cross court.
Anywhere cross.
If you're playing on a pickleball court where there's like 2-tone, then you have to serve it past the kitchen line, just because it's hard to distinguish that. But if you're playing on a court that we just set up,
we have pickleball courts,
then
or like blended lines on a tennis court. So,
yeah. So typically tell them to serve past the
just
kitchen.
Same like pickleball.
Okay. Yep. Thanks. Yeah. All right, let's bring it in. Great. Love the participation this time. So someone asked about how you keep score, how you serve. The scoring is no ad scoring. You play first to 4 games wins a set. So the sets go by really quick. No tiebreakers. Once again, no ad scoring. When you serve, you have to serve from the corner. That makes it a little bit harder to serve and volley. When we do tournaments, we actually put a mark that's 4 feet back from the corner. So you have to have 1 foot on the mark when you serve the ball. And it can be either a drop feed out of your hand, or a drop hit, or out of your hand hit cross court. So if I were to serve, it might look like this. And that makes it just a little bit harder. I'm still allowed to, but it makes it a little bit harder for me to get up and play an aggressive first volley, especially at the higher levels of play. That makes a difference. And more at the recreational levels, just serving from the corner, things like that. You have to serve underhand, contact at waist or below, but it doesn't have to be a specific type of position with the wrist like you would in pickleball. So as some of you may have discovered from hitting the ball, I don't know if anybody tried using a Western forehand grip, but they really don't work. The ball's so low coming in, and the paddle's just not powerful enough, so you're going to hit a lot of balls in the net. And so I feel as a result that the grips that people use for spec tennis fall within the acceptable USPTA parameters. I've seen a lot of the time a junior player play on a ball that's a court that's a little bit too big with a ball that's bouncing too high. Maybe they haven't learned yet how to move up and take the ball on the rise or move back and let it fall into their strike zone. And so their grip ends up rotating. As a result, they end up with a full Western grip, which was not intentional and not within the parameters that we're trying to teach. There's always that one exception, though, like you see Jack Sock on the tour, and then that becomes the evidence for the parents as to why their student is going to be using that grip. Next is serve and volley. So very often it's very hard to get our players to serve and volley in our clinics. They maybe don't see a need for it or a reason for it, but oftentimes we might not even be wanting them to serve and volley. We just want them to get better at moving forward, doing a split step at the right time, and playing a volley from no man's land. Right? And so here it's a lot less intimidating to serve and volley. If I serve, and even if I get to here, I have a good chance of making a first volley. And so we can practice specific things like that in a more closed environment. We can practice just the timing of coming up and doing a little split step at the right moment. And the serve's underhand, so you don't have all that extra time of the serve going out, being unreturnable, things like that. The fitness, I think with the rallies being a little bit longer, that can improve the fitness. As you can see, the balls are contained on a much smaller area of the court, with the exception of it going over this net and having to go retrieve it. But most of the time, the ball's right here. So after a point's done, I walk over to the other side, I start the next point. I don't get a second serve, it's only one serve. And so the pace of play is just a little bit faster. Also, more balls gettable by your opponent leads to you running for more balls. How often do we see in tennis 2 guys just ripping the ball across court? Suddenly someone pulls the trigger down the line and the other player doesn't even go for it. Well, if you do that here, it looks kind of silly because it's only a few feet away to get to that down the line shot. Mixing levels. This is great for pros who have problems with mixing levels. I think we all have issues with that because there's always complaints. The higher level players don't want to play with the lower level ones. Here, with the absence of the overhand serve and the ability to just kind of rip a ground stroke winner, the lower level players can hang in there better with the higher level ones. When you start playing this and we get competitive with some points, you're going to find that it's hard to hit a clean winner on a volley. And so I think that brings a necessity for developing some touch on your volley. When I'm up there in doubles and I'm looking to end the point, I'm always looking for a drop volley opportunity or a wide angle volley, especially on the post coming across, hitting a little cut angle to win the point away from the other net player. Just because I know that my opponent's going to get their paddle on it if I hit a power volley. Whether they make it or not is up in the air, but if I want to hit a winner, I'm going to develop some touch. And so I think a lot of players, if they feel that need to develop touch, they might begin to be open to changing grips and things like that because it's going to be hard to hit a really good touch volley with an inappropriate grip for the situation. And finally, singles. In tennis, a lot of people don't play singles because they think they have too much court to cover. But that's based on playing a counter-punching game where they're just going to have to chase down every ball, or based on playing a game where you only stay at the baseline. In Spec, if you can develop a well-rounded game and get to the net and close out points, you might be able to translate that to tennis and not actually have to run that much in tennis singles. So for those players that we kind of on the fence, we want them to try singles because we think they can do it. They don't just have to limit themselves to doubles. I think this can be a great training tool. Okay, so now we're going to need a bunch of players, plus we're going to need 2 pros feeding this next game. Okay, so this is a cardio tennis-based game. And so you're going to see how even in this small area of the court, you can get a pretty good workout in. Okay, so let me get 6 volunteers to come out first. I will feed the game, and then we're going to need everybody out here to play the game. Okay, so you're going to be right here at the net post. So we're going to have a challenging team at the net post. Champion team is going to be kind of in midcourt. Awesome. You had a paddle. So you'll be here. You're the challenging team. So the first person in line is going to chase down the first ball. The second person in line, you guys are good there. You're the champion team. The second person in line is going to be their partner. So what's your name?
Steve.
So Steve has to get this first ball. And you guys have to touch the net, and then you have to let the first ball bounce. So you're allowed to start up here if you want, but you probably don't want to wait up here because if you volley, you're going to lose the point on the first ball. Okay? Can't volley the first one. All right, here we go. Ready, Steve? Now you're on the court with him. You're a doubles team with Steve. Play it if it's close. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice, okay. So 1 point win. So you guys come over here now. He was a little bit lenient on the feed. And then you guys cycle to the back of the line. You're the first runner now. You're second, so you're going to join him. You guys are not allowed to let the first ball bounce, and you have to touch the net. All right, here we go. Next one comes in. Oh, what a shot. You guys are over right away. And then you join the back of the line quick. Start at the net post, yep. So tap the net and then let the first ball bounce. Here we go. Good job. Excellent. Okay, so they won from the champion side, so they remain the champion. So if you don't lose here, then you stay here as long as you can. Okay, so let's try to get 8 to a court plus 2 pros coming out here and feeding this game. Okay? Who wants to feed here?
You're going to need a lot of action.
Awesome.
You say you want me to feed, or?
You want to be the feeder first, or you want to be playing in? All right. Okay. So we got a basket here. We got a hopper there. Feeder. We got a feeder here. Okay. Why don't you feed on this court? Awesome.
Eric's going to feed?
Eric's feeding.
Right, Eric.
Nice. You stand wherever you want. Feed. You're just trying to feed him kind of a lob.
Are they all the same?
Oh, they're a little bit different, but they all feel a little bit different. Yeah.
Send me up going, Eric.
Awesome. All right, a little bit shorter than that. Yes, just so I'm running to the fence. That's good though. Okay, here we go. There we go. That's outside the sideline, but it's good. It's good. Nice. Now we got it. Oh, what a point. Okay, so now now you're going to be the next runner because your team lost. You're the next runner.
Way to cover the middle of the court, bud.
Nice. Jump in with him. Okay. Can we get a few more and start another court of this over on this court? A few more people out here. We need to start another cardio. Oh, he tries the tweener. Nice.
I like this guy.
Little shorter on the feed. Here we go. Nice. Into the fence. Nice. Nice. Are you guys still touching the net though every time? Okay, good. 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 Nice shot. Little flip. Excellent. Good. We're still waiting for a few more players to start it over here. Eric's being brutal with the feeds. Love it. Oh, there we go. That's a meatball.
Nice shot. Finally eliminated him. Excellent. Thanks for coming over. I'll feed this one here. Okay, let's get a team starting at the net post right here. So you guys are here. You guys are the champion team. You have to touch the net, and then you're not allowed to you're not allowed to volley the first ball. So you're on this side. When I feed, you're going to touch the net, and then you have to let the first one bounce. And I'm going to feed them a lob to that side over there. Okay. Here we go. Depends on how much of a workout you want. Got to let it bounce now. Okay. Oh, you guys didn't get back quite far enough, so you have to let the first ball bounce. Now you're out. And they're in. And then he's the runner. All right, here we go. Ready, he's running. Tap the net, let the first one bounce. Nice. Madness. All right, what a point. They're 2-0. Okay, so who's next in line? So you weren't running, so now you're running. And then you join her as a partner since you were next in line. You in the San Diego hat. Yep. Here we go. Yep. Here we go.
That's fun.
All right, good try. Next one. So now you're running in the San Diego hat. Here we go. Good. You're in with her. Yep. Good. That's all right. You volleyed it to save it. No problem. Can you pull it? Can you pull this line for me? All right. Perfect. All right. Nice. Here we go. Good try. Excellent. You got the system down. Here we go, Josh. Nice. Good save. What an exchange. That was great. Okay. Now she's the runner. You want to jump in? You want to feed? Awesome.
I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't like playing tennis with my box.
There's a paddle. Yeah, go ahead and feed. Yeah. Or you can jump in as well if you want. All right, so you're just going to feed him kind of a mini lob to this side. He's going to start at the net post. All right, new feeder. Here we go. Nice. Oh, good defense there. Yeah, you guys are over. One and done. Got him with a rules violation. Sorry, I was in your way. I was in your line of fire. Good shot. There we go. What again? Sorry, I was in your way again. Everybody's way. So you can see everybody's very active. We got a lot of people on the court. Even though there's maybe 8 or 6 in some situations, you don't feel like you're resting that long. And you're running like crazy. Guys are making gets that you wouldn't dream of in tennis. These guys might though, because they're pretty fit. But for the average person coming way over here, making a get, pretty tough. Last point on each court. All right. Paddles down. Way to go. Awesome. We'll leave the paddles on the court. We'll be back in a minute with more court activity.
You know, it's a great sport for a man that can volley that well.
All right, paddle.
We're not going to hear about the white volley.
I heard a couple of these. I know that's what Amanda is. It was so fun.
Okay, so we talked a lot about benefits for tennis players, but I also want to talk about some benefits for clubs and pros in addition to having your players benefit from using this as a supplement or a stage in their development. Number one is you can attract new players to your club. Depending on what kind of club you have might have people that are swim members that have never set foot on the tennis court. It's too intimidating to They might have to take years of lessons to even be able to rally. In Spec, it looks a little bit simpler. If you're walking by, you can see it. Oh, I can probably play that, or maybe I'd be able to rally in that. Things like that. So I was talking to a tennis director in Texas, the club of Kingwood near Houston. They're owned by Club Corp. Club Corp is trying to become more of a lifestyle brand. So they're trying to figure out if people aren't playing tennis or golf, what can they get them doing that's active? And so things like pickleball and Spec tennis are really getting a lot of traction there. As you can see, you can fit 4 times the number of players on a court. I was at a club in Tiburon, and during primetime hours, between 9 and 11 a.m. during the week, you'd only have 2 pros teaching at once. You had to save room for league matches and members playing. Now, if we were teaching Spec or teaching a clinic or a lesson, we could fit 8 pros on those 2 courts now, doing the same sort of thing, and be able to really maximize the use of the courts. For events, we've done a lot of events, and they work great. They often work better than the tennis events, at least at the club I was at, because there's no egos. So a lot of the time, players don't want to lose to each other. They don't want to lose to their friends at their club, and so we actually canceled the club championships because the people just weren't turning up for it. But in Spec, there's often a cocktail on the court. Players are having a really good time, a lot of laughing. And then the fact that you can mix levels so well makes it very nice for the pro or the director running the event to not have to deal with the headache of wondering who's going to complain about what. So overall, it's just a lot more of a light environment for events. You can stand out from other facilities in your area by offering something that they don't yet have. You might even attract some non-member interest as well. And as a pro, I think conventions and seminars like this are great because constantly trying to learn new concepts, learn new ways of presenting information, learning new games and drills. And so as a pro, you can really set yourself aside from other pros by perhaps implementing this into your junior development pathway, for example. So maybe the kid starts off playing red ball, then they start orange ball tennis, but they also play Spec tennis at the same time. And then as they move through the stages, you still use Spec tennis for certain aspects. I've always found that at the end of a clinic, if I break out the Spec tennis paddles, the kids almost start cheering. They've been doing a clinic for an hour and 20 minutes. Suddenly you get the paddles and it's go time for them. They just love it so much to just be able to play Spec tennis the last 10 minutes of a clinic. Yeah.
Hey, could you, I don't know if you have time, but could you play, have 4 guys play, 4 people play
Yeah.
one game?
Absolutely.
So real game of,
Yeah. Great. Good question. For tournaments and leagues, I've run a few tournaments a year in NorCal, and I've found that you can get the same revenue from a tournament that you can for tennis, but on 1/4 the space. So if you just had this court, you can run a medium-sized Spec tennis tournament if you converted it to 4 courts. You can also convince players to play more than one division because it's not as grueling. They don't have to worry about that 3-hour-long battle only playing 2 tennis matches in a day. You can have them play 5 Spec matches and they're still okay. I've also started running leagues in my area of California. And of the 3 sports that I offer, tennis, pickleball, and Spec, Spec tennis surprisingly is actually the most popular this season, even though most of the players hadn't played it prior. So they just found out about it. I told them a little bit about it. They're USTA players. They wanted a little break from that, and so they're having fun playing Spec tennis in the league. I found that with junior clinics, we all have those clinics where the kids aren't quite high performance. Maybe they don't have control. They can't quite rally with their peers, so they often goof off. Maybe they fail on purpose. Maybe they're just not that engaged. We spend a lot of the clinic trying to make sure it's very fun for the kids because I think that's the first thing. If the kids aren't having fun, how are they going to improve? How are they going to want to play tennis, stay in the sport? So we spend most of the time just making sure it's as fun as possible. But had it been this instead, who knows? They might have had more success. They might have been able to rally a little bit better. They're more engaged because they're having more fun, and then their improvement just shoots up. And then the startup costs are pretty low to start Spec tennis. So most of you guys have at least quick start nets at your club, the 18-footers. Those work great for this. These are pickleball nets. They're 21 feet. But most of you guys have this kind of stuff already. You have throwdown lines, orange dot balls. The paddles are pretty much the only cost, and I make the paddles. So that's a good in you have right there. You contact me. We can
get you some pretty good pricing on the paddles. What's that? So they're online for $110, but I can get you guys them for $60 a piece, or even lower if you're buying in bulk. So it's not too much of a startup cost, and then you don't have to replace your strings like you would for a tennis racket. So obviously it's a little bit less revenue from a pro shop standpoint because you're not constantly having to repair people's equipment.
Are the paddles different?
So let me get a couple paddles. Good question. So we started out with the platform tennis paddle, and then it's evolved to the Spec tennis specific paddle, which doesn't have the same gritty surface. It just has a textured paint. I found that with gritty surface, once in a while you'll nick your finger, and it's kind of annoying. And it doesn't actually really, in my opinion, help you add more spin to the ball than the gritty paint does. So we've kind of evolved to a lighter 10.3 ounce paddle that doesn't have anything sharp on it. Does that kind of answer your question? Great. 5 minutes. It's made of a high density foam. Let's quickly get 3 others out there plus me, and we'll play a quick game so you can see kind of one full game in action. So I need 3 volunteers. Nice. You guys have been out here every time. Love it.
We like it.
Awesome. Okay, so let's say I'm serving. You can stand wherever you want in the court. The receiver has to let the ball bounce just like you would in tennis. He can't volley my serve back. So my partner might be at the net. I might decide to serve and volley if so they should have got that, but they just weren't in position, right? That shouldn't be a winner. All right, so 1-0.
There's no 15, 30.
You can say 15, 30, 40, but it's typically easier just to count to 4.
Good one.
Out. All right, 1-1. So you can see the points happen really fast. There's probably 10 seconds in between the start of the next point. Oh, too good. All right, 30-15 or 2-1. Nice poach. Oh, you gave him just such a nice return right in his strike zone. Okay, 3-1. All right, you start back on this point. I'm going to limit you a little bit. Nice. All right, so you can see that's kind of how a game looks. Does anybody have any other questions? Serving's the same. You switch sides after every serve. So I go from the deuce side to the ad side, serving from the corner.
Any rule for wanting to bounce? He should be bouncing the box on the serve.
Yeah, he can stand as close as he wants to net typically, though.
Yeah, so my partner can stand as close as he wants to the net. No restriction there. If you're playing on a pickleball court that's like multicolored, often those courts don't have a center line dividing them down all the way. And so we say for those situations that you have to serve past the kitchen line, just so that you know it's a cross-court serve. But if we're playing on a court that was just temporarily set up, then the serve just has to go cross-court. So that allows a drop shot serve as well. Returner's partner can be at the net. Just one serve. And lets her play it, so if it hits the net and goes in, you play it. Yeah, underhand has to contact at the waist or below, but you can let it bounce before you hit it. Anything else, guys? Yeah, you play let, so if it hits the net and goes in, you play it, just like in D1 college tennis.
Pickleball has like an association or something. Is there an association for Spec tennis?
Yeah, so right now it's just me, but it's the USPTA, so United States Spec Tennis Association, and so I'm looking to add to that. I was working 6 days a week on the tennis court for the last 4 years, and then I recently switched jobs. Now I'm only 3 days a week, and so I have a lot more time to try to grow it and promote it and do stuff like this. So thank you all so much for having me out here. It's great, really an honor. And if you have any questions, I'm going to be at the beach, and I have a bunch of brochures and other things to pass out as well down at the beach, I think. So.
Thank you so much. Let's give it up.
Thanks.
right, so while we're in transition for our next presentation is going to be